What's up, Positive Peeps? It's Paula and welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. I can't believe it's 2022. So, today's video. I wasn't sure if I was going to record this, mostly because I knew it would be a lot of me just talking, and I didn't know if I wanted to do this video. I knew I wanted to do a video that would help someone out there who's going through something similar. I didn't know if people would even care, but a friend of mine actually recently said that she had been going through something similar, and hearing my story, my experiences helped her. And honestly, that's the only thing that I really hope to get out of this video, is to potentially help someone out there who's going through something similar, if not physically something similar, maybe even mentally, because I'll talk about soon. What I've been through in the last year and a half has really taken a huge mental toll on myself. I wasn't burnt out by any means, but there were times when I just wanted to have a solid cry because I didn't know if anything would get better. To this day, I don't know if my Achilles is even going in the right direction. Share my story in hopes that maybe someone out there is going through something similar and I can help. I actually wrote down sort of the outline for this video, which I don't usually do. I wanted to touch all of the points, so I wrote an outline. But basically, so the introduction, starting out with the introduction and the point of today's video. So the point of today's video is to talk about my Achilles injuries, left and right, and offer my experience and the 5 key lessons or takeaways from my experience. And a huge part of staying positive with Paula, I've realized, is not just a lifestyle vlog. It's about showing that a huge part of my life is overcoming sort of the curveballs that life throws at me. And lately, a lot of those curveballs have been physical injuries, but you know, that's another curveball that I have to overcome. So yeah, a huge part of my life is trying to find ways to stay positive, stay optimistic, and yeah, so without further ado, here is sort of the detailed outline. I'll go over the 5 quick takeaways or overarching lessons that I've learned, and then I'll go into sort of longer story. Oh, really quickly before I get into this any further, wanted to quickly point out that 1, I am not a health professional by any means, and I am not really a professional runner, I would say. I enjoy running. That's kind of the extent to my running knowledge. As I will get into on a couple of these takeaways, I learned a lot about running, and I learned a lot about my body when I run, but I am not a professional in any ways. So the second point I wanted to bring up was that I'm also not a health professional, and please take anything that I say with a grain of salt. And if you can or are able, I highly recommend that you reach out to professionals. Please consult a health professional. But yes, so I just wanted to quickly point that out. Starting with the 5 quick takeaways. First one is the big lesson that I had to realize that your body would change. The second big takeaway that I realize now, about a year and a half after my injury, is that you will be spending lots of money if you can spend lots of money on your injuries. And I hope that this video will allow someone to not spend as much money as I did. And I think if you injure yourself and you realize, okay, it's kind of past this phase and it's going kind of longer, what I wish that I did now is kind of assess long-term, all right, where am I going to end up spending money? The doctor's offices, the physical therapists, and how can I kind of avoid spending a lot of money. The third point that or the bigger overarching takeaway was that you'll learn a lot, or I think you'll learn a lot. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my body. I learned a lot about running. I learned a lot about just stretching, which is another point on its own, but I learned a lot, and I think that was a huge positive takeaway, to be honest, because this is all about staying positive with Paula. But I think that's one of the bigger positive takeaways from this entire journey. And I am still learning today, which I am grateful for, because learning and knowledge could help you prevent things from happening in the future. I mean, it's as simple as thinking about touching a hot stove, right? If you touch a hot stove, you learn very quickly that your hands don't like that feeling. The 4th point that I'll go over is that this injury may take a huge mental toll on you, and it may just be a lot mentally. Honestly, for me, in my experience, it's been a day of constant worry since I got injured, basically, because even though I am in a much better place than I was, all to say that there hasn't been a day where I don't worry of my Achilles completely rupturing, and you know, that takes a huge toll on you. The staying positive Paula side of me would say, you know, yeah, but that's life. But I think you also learn how to overcome a lot of those fears or anxieties. The fifth point I learned, and I made this completely separate from the third point, which was that you'll learn a lot, was that I learned the importance of stretching. And I think that this is one of those points that can really help anybody watching this video, whether you are injured or not. Learn to love stretching. Those were the 5 big takeaways or lessons that I wanted to mention for those who just want those 5 quick takeaways before I jump into sort of my story. At this point, I will talk about my story. So basically, I injured my right Achilles June 8th of 2020. And what's really important to note for me is that I grew up playing golf and I walked a lot when I was a kid. And every so often, my Achilles would, this is when I was younger, so around 14, my Achilles would kind of feel very sore. And I remember even when I was younger that it would end up being red, a little bit swollen, it would be thicker than usual, and it would just feel uncomfortable when I walked long miles. And I was a golfer, competitive athlete in golf, and so I would be out there standing and walking all day if it was summer and there was no school, or even for half a day, even if there was school. So I was standing and walking a lot, and my Achilles would flare up like that every once in a while, meaning every once a couple of months, maybe up to 2 or 3 times a year. But it would be so odd because I would feel that soreness. The next day I would wake up and it would be completely gone, like it never even happened. So I thought that was kind of weird, but then again, since it went away completely the next day, I was like, okay, I thought nothing of it. That happened throughout my life, and then I started actually running and knowing what cardio was when I was 18 and a senior in high school. And so I started running, absolutely fell in love with running, absolutely fell in love with HIIT workouts and active lifestyles. So I started running at 18, and then I'm 23 now. So for the past 5 years, I've been running, I want to say 4 to 5 miles every other day. But when I got injured, that was also the moment when the pandemic really hit the entire world. And I had just graduated from college, was working from home, had time to go outside for a walk, even on the mornings that I would run, even on the days that I would run. And I just remember standing too, because I had a standing desk all day long. So I was always on my feet, never really sat down. Part of that was because I was just, again, embracing that active lifestyle. And I remember waking up, I remember one day feeling that soreness in my right Achilles and thinking nothing of it because, like I said, I grew up with this particular soreness, felt exactly similar to when I was a kid. Thought, okay, if I wake up in the morning, it's going to go away. This time, June 8th, 2020, it did not go away. It persisted for 2 or 3 days. Since I run almost every other day, I remember feeling it the day that I ran, and then 3 days later, feeling it again, but I still chose to run because that was considered my running day. Ran, had the standing desk, and walked my usual 1.7 miles in addition to running that day with my dog during my lunch break. And remember looking down at my right Achilles and just immediately sitting down and crying and calling my mom and asking her to pick me up while I was in tears because my right Achilles had swollen up so bad, and there were 3 purple dots or purple bumps that formed on the outside of my right Achilles. And I hadn't had that when I started, before I went for a walk. So it happened during my walk, and I could tell that it was just really weighing me down, my Achilles. And I looked down, and I think I have a photo those 3 lumps appeared. My Achilles was completely swollen. I just sat down because I knew something was really wrong and called my mom. And basically, I think my first mistake that I said that I would trickle in was thinking, oh my gosh, I can't work out. And that was a huge mistake. But you know, again, 23, I like working out, and I remember just being so down from that point, because I was like, I can't work out in the next couple of days probably. Second mistake was that I was stubborn and I did work out, even though I knew my body was saying don't work out, but I did try and work out. So I ran like 2 days later after I had consulted a doctor, just a regular general doctor, and they said just wait until the Achilles stops swelling up. And it did kind of stop swelling up. It did, you know, reduce in terms of how swollen it was. And so I ran that weekend. Achilles was not happy after I ran. So my story is very unique because I didn't completely rupture my Achilles. I could still hobble on it. The week after it happened, I was definitely hobbling on it, even though there wasn't really too much pain other than just like achiness in that specific area. Again, no rupture. So then I see the first podiatrist. The first podiatrist examines me, puts me in a boot, takes an x-ray, x-ray's fine, orders me to take an MRI, which I asked if I could do left and the right, just because I was going to be, you know, sleeping in the MRI basically, or laying down in the MRI machine anyway. So I thought, okay, can I take both my left and my right in case there were micro tears in any? She thankfully said sure. So I got MRI scans of both my left and my right Achilles, came back clean, like no micro tears, nothing. And I was like, oh, this is great news, but at the same time, I still feel just crappy when I walk on it. Is what's wrong? So the podiatrist said, okay, just wait 2 weeks, don't do anything on it. I didn't listen. I biked on it, tried to do things. Fast forward to November, and by now I am still feeling achy when I walk. I had been out of the boot after 2 weeks. Given how stubborn I am, I still continue to walk every day, kind of hobbling. November of 2020, my left Achilles starts to feel pain. Different kind of pain, because this felt very much like overcompensation pain, where I was only putting a lot of my weight on my left because I was limping and hobbling on it so much. So fast forward to November of 2020, and I see another podiatrist to get a second opinion. They still say, you know, you don't have any micro tears, so I think you just need a rest. And that, I just didn't want to hear that I had to rest, to be honest. So then fast forward to January of 2021, I meet the third podiatrist because I want to see get a third opinion. But this time I seek out a sports podiatrist, and thankfully this podiatrist also runs, right? So I see the sports podiatrist, and he says, honestly, I also don't think you have a huge problem, even though I was complaining about not feeling the same. Keeping in mind that I have not, to this day, felt my Achilles the same as it was pre-injury. Like my Achilles has never felt the same, which is really sad. But again, another point of making this video for anybody who's going through something similar. I feel you completely. So January 2021 comes, I seek out the sports podiatrist, and he offers me this treatment called shockwave therapy. And I don't listen to him, again, because I'm stubborn, and also because I want to save money, which is another point that I mentioned, until March, because each session would only be about 15 minutes, but that's the whole point of shockwave therapy. It's very short, but each session would be $100. So, and he recommended up to 5 shockwave treatments in the beginning, and then you could always kind of get 7 to 10 afterwards in total if your case is severe. So I ended up getting 5 treatments of shockwave therapy, first from the months of March to, let's say, June. Shockwave therapy helped me get to the point where I could start jogging, but my right Achilles, when I walked on it or even ran on it, never felt normal. Still to this day does not feel normal. And then by I think July of 2021 this year, or last year, because Happy New Year, I feel so done with it. You know, talk about mental toll. I was just done with feeling so abnormal in my feet. So I just get up to 7 treatments of shockwave therapy. I think that kind of helped push me a little bit further in terms of my recovery. Throughout this, I had seen a physical therapist, 2 different physical therapists, about 3 to 4 times each. I think you can only learn so much from a physical therapist, and I can just, if you want, I can definitely film another video to go over the stretches that I've learned from my physical therapist. But that's another story I want to say. So fast forward to July 2021, I'm up to 7 rounds of shockwave therapy. And so fast forward to like August, October of 2021, I'm feeling okay, but not normal. I'm just living with this new normal, which is just achiness and constant soreness in my right Achilles. My left one thankfully got better. And I think the reason why my left one had such a better time getting better was because it never really got injured in the first place. There was something mechanically wrong with my left. It was just, I had overcompensated so much, and my left had just been done with all of that. My camera kind of stopped recording, so I had to record it again. But I wanted to keep it short and sweet as much as I could, because I could always create another video kind of going more in depth than I have with my story. But really wanted this video to be about those 5 overarching takeaways and lessons, kind of going into them a little bit deeper with telling my story. But yeah, those 5 takeaways. If I can mention a couple more personal experience with these takeaways, I would say 1, your body would change. I had to realize early on, and I hope that for you all who are watching who are injured, realizing that your body would change can maybe at least save you some time, as much time as I can give you to kind of get ready and prepared. I didn't know just how much my body would change. I also didn't really go on a calorie deficit from what I had been when I had been active, to kind of offset the fact that I wouldn't be active anymore. So I ended up gaining a bunch of weight, which ended up with me not feeling too great because I couldn't be active and I was overweight now. But you know, I got to eat the foods that I enjoyed, and I'm not regretting that. And I always knew I would get back to a more active lifestyle than I was when I was injured, and so that kind of gave me hope. But I'm hoping to share my experience so that I can maybe save someone time out there. Maybe if I had gone on a calorie deficit and maintained at least like a lean body, it wouldn't have been as hard for me to get back in training. 2, spending money. I think again, just being smart with how many doctor's offices you go to, or likewise physical therapists. And also looking into just maybe spending a little extra money from the beginning on custom orthotics rather than over-the-counter ones, and saving your money maybe in the long term. And the 3rd point about learning a lot. Like, I learned a lot. And I'm continuing to learn a lot, and I find that is a huge positive. Looking at the glass half full kind of thing. You'll learn a lot about your body, I want to say, and for me, I learned that I was flat-footed I'm not flat-footed when I sit down apparently, but when I run or bear weight on my feet, that's when I'm flat-footed. So I think, you know, I didn't know that before. I also didn't know how weak my calves and how weak my glutes were, and those all help. Glutes, hips, that was all weak. So I learned a lot from seeing those therapists and doctors about my body, the anatomy of my body. Likewise, I learned a lot in general about, you know, what shockwave therapy is and whether to see a sports podiatrist or a regular podiatrist. So I think that was really beautiful too in the entire journey. The fourth point being having a mental tool. That's another thing that I'm really grateful for. I think surrounding myself with people that kept me upbeat and just in general finding ways to, you know, before that I thought being active was a huge part of my life, and it was and it still is, but just maybe dialing it down and thinking about what really makes me happy. Food, for instance, probably why I gained a lot of weight. But again, like, no regrets. I can't regret it. I can't go to the past. And yeah, the fifth point, stretching. Stretching is so nice for your body. And I try to get my parents to stretch. I try to stretch different parts of my body. I love learning new stretches every day, just because I think stretching could help in the long term by a lot. And I think it's a great investment for your body. So those are kind of details of me going into those 5 quick takeaways. But again, I can go into more detail for anybody who wants. I'm on social media, and yeah, thanks for watching my story. And so yeah, thanks so much for watching my story. Please let me know if there's anything else that I can do to help. So stay positive, stay healthy. All right, bye.